What's going on, Ross? Thanks for hopping on.
I am doing great, Tom. Hugh, great to talk with you guys.
So, Ross, I'm kind of curious. Did you see this offense that they ran Sunday similar to the one that they ran Monday night, or was it some definitive differences in it?
Well, I think the definitive difference is just the volume of under center. It's really actually wild that the offense was pretty similar for the first 13 weeks of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And then week 14 in the Monday night game, you saw some route combinations, some crossing routes. It was much less just the isolation routes outside the numbers. They got a lot more intricate, I guess is one way to describe it, with some of the route combinations. There were more crossing patterns, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that. And they moved the ball way more effectively that night than they had been. Unfortunately, the 5 turnovers killed them. And then on Sunday, I think they had 30 snaps under center, which is the most that Sirianni has ever had, which means that's the most that Jalen Hurts has ever had. And so I am a big fan right now of some of the ways in which the Eagles' offense is trending schematically. First of all, I believe in some of the things they're doing, but secondly, just getting these teams off the scent a little bit, you know? Like, I mean, people have kind of gotten so accustomed to so many of the RPOs and inside zone out of the gun. I think, you know, I don't care how talented you are. If the other team has a pretty good idea of what's coming, that is really hard in the NFL. So now that there's a decent amount more variety and they're coming with the under center stuff, because here's the thing, because the Eagles don't do under center stuff that much, you really don't know what's coming. And then they had the shovel passes to Goddard, the play action after under center. Skies were wide open at times. I see that all across the place in the NFL. So I came away, I know the Raiders stink, but I would say schematically very encouraged.
So I'm kind of curious because it feels like the under center is the biggest difference for you. What is the biggest difference, Ross? Because, being a defender, either under center and shotgun, whatever, it don't make a difference. It's all pass. But what is the biggest difference from being under center as opposed to being in shotgun?
It's a huge difference on multiple levels. The first one is I don't care what they say. I think defensive linemen are thinking more run, either consciously or subconsciously, when you're under center, than they are pass. I think the sell from the offensive linemen on the play action pass part of it. Well, let me take a step back. First of all, there's a lot more runs that you can call under center than you can in the gun. Yeah. There's a limited menu of runs out of the gun with an offset back. It's like a high percentage is just inside zone away from the offset back. There's a couple of other things they put in there, but they're usually not as effective. Under center, you have a huge menu of runs, and the Eagles, by the way, use some of those different runs in this game. So that's number one. Number two, because of that, I think the defensive line and linebackers are thinking run more, and so when you do any type of play action or boot, you can really sell it harder as an offensive lineman. And once I was not a great player, but if I sell run and the defensive lineman, no matter how good they were, Hugh, they believe it's run for the first half a second, they're not getting a sack. It's just too hard to transition rush at that point if they're playing, run the first second of the play. So that's big. And then even like, when they have Hurts put the ball in the running back's belly, those are not really play action passes when he's in the gun. Those are like RPOs. It feels very token. Right when he's putting the ball in Saquon's belly, it feels half-hearted. You can tell from the offensive line that it's not really going to be a run. When you're under center and you're doing play action off of like an outside zone look, and the O-linemen's keeping their helmets down and they're really selling it, if you think about it, the linebackers and safeties and D-line, they don't really know it's a pass for like a full second and a half. So that's a major difference in terms of a second and a half for the receivers and tight end to run their routes before the linebackers and safeties figure it out, as opposed to a token, quarter of a second when you're in the gun?
Yeah, and obviously that's a big part of it to help that offense keep the defense on their toes. Ross Tucker, host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, joining us now. And Ross, when you look at the offense as well, it feels like there's been a confidence that's lacking. I mean, the 5-game stretch, they really weren't playing well. They are able to have a game like they had on Sunday against the Raiders. As an offensive player, how important is that, and how important is it for them to keep building off of what they did positively on Sunday?
Tom, I was thinking about this a lot right before I, called in with you guys. This is a massive game on Saturday. Massive. And I know no one's going to look at it that way because they're just going to talk about, they only need to win one, or, Cowboys lose one and they're the 3 seed and blah, blah, blah. I think if the Eagles go out there and really look good against the Commanders, then you are building some significant momentum going into Buffalo and going into the end of the season. If they go out there against Washington Saturday and lay an egg and lose that game, it's almost like the Raiders game didn't happen. I mean, I know in the records, in the standings it did, and they'll still very likely win the NFC East, but all of the positive vibes, all of the discussion we're having about some of the cool things that they did schematically, if they go down to Washington and lay an egg and lose to Marcus Mariota and the Commanders, it's almost like Sunday's win over the Raiders didn't even happen from a vibe standpoint.
Yeah, and I think that's something they need to keep building off of, Ross. And one more for you here, and just got to ask you, because we have obviously focused so much on this offense, but this defense is really incredible. And what they did on Sunday, shutting out the Raiders, 75 yards of offense, which, I mean, I can't remember a total that low. What can you say about this defense and what they've been able to do really over a 2-year span here?
The defense is what makes me feel like they are still a legitimate Super Bowl contender, because they're good enough on that side of the ball that I feel like, even against some of these good teams, the Rams or the Seahawks or whoever, I feel like the defense could hold these teams in check, and that the Eagles could win a low to moderately scoring game, and it feels like they're just getting better at certain spots. I mean, this find with Brandon Graham, 2 sacks and a tackle for loss.
That's pretty impressive.
7 snaps at D tackle. I mean, it only took us 16 years to figure out his best position might be D tackle.
Right.
I'm joking, of course, but it was really fun to watch. Somebody asked me recently about, like, if I had to go to bat for one Eagle for All-Pro or Pro Bowl. The crazy thing is, I think it would be a battle in my mind between Quinyon and Cooper DeJean. It's just crazy to think that this team, with all the great offensive linemen and Saquon and AJ, if someone said, who would you stand on the table for and say this guy is a Pro Bowler, I would have to debate between 2 second-year cornerbacks, which is just remarkable, especially where they got him. I mean, to get Quinyon in the 20s and Cooper in the second round, and here they are, in their second years, where I would not be shocked at all. I don't even remember how the All-Pro ballot goes. I don't know if they have a designated nickelback or not, but you could make a really strong argument that one of the 2 corners and the nickelback on the first team All-Pro are Eagles second-year players in Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, they've drafted pretty well on the defensive side of the ball the last couple of years. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Nolan Smith. It's pretty crazy the amount of talent on that side of the ball. But Ross Tucker hosts the Ross Tucker Football Podcast at Ross Tucker NFL, where you can find him on Twitter. Thanks a lot for hopping on, Ross. We appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Ross.
Of course, always great to talk with you guys.